Round 2. Fight!
Welcome back to round 2 of this rant. So previously I was discussing it and everything that was left out. And I said, let's just put a pin in it for now, since I've done 3 videos on the miniseries, the book, and the movies. And I was also discussing Harry Potter, how the first book was very faithful. Probably when it was talking about that, I should have mentioned too to the fact that most everybody hates 4 for one reason, because they cut out like the whole Quidditch tournament thing, and that would have been interesting to see. Again, this is why it should have been made into a TV show. And before I jump back into it, I also want to say, here is a big thing to consider when you have a book and you're trying to make it into a show or a movie. People, they will always compare. And every time I hear a comparison, it's not that, oh, I like that the movie did this differently than the book. No, usually when people complain that it wasn't like the book, it's, oh, they didn't have this part, or they didn't have this part. And that's what I was trying to say last time, is if you are changing the story, it's like a reboot or a remake, whatever you want to call it. Take, for instance, RoboCop. The new RoboCop was nothing like the original RoboCop. Yeah, sure, it's still a police officer who gets killed and gets turned into a cyborg. I mean, it's still the basic story, but almost everything is different about the new movie versus the old. It's just like a book. And there are books out there where this is not much of a problem. And when it is, oh, you hear about it. You hear big time, And that is actually manga and anime. Anime is usually very faithful to the manga. Now, true, they do take some liberties with anime, and they might throw in extra bits, which the anime fans call filler arcs. 4 or 5 episodes in between arcs that were never in the anime that just serve to kill time, but have no real bearing on the story where it's going, and they can easily jump right back in to where they were going. These filler arcs can tie up loose ends, do things that had not been done. I have a friend who is very heavily into anime, and he has told me several animes which are faithful to the books and which ones aren't. And from what he tells me, 9 times out of 10, the anime is pretty faithful to their manga counterparts. So it can be done. And it can be done right.
Water, 35 liters. Carbon, 20 kilograms. Ammonia, 4 liters. Lime, 1.5 kilograms. Phosphorus, 800 grams. Salt, 250 grams. Saltpeter, 100 grams. Sulfur, 80 grams. Fluorine, 7.5. Iron, 5. Silicon, 3 grams. And trace amounts of 15 other elements.
What's that?
It's all the ingredients of the average adult human body, down to the last specks of protein in your eyelashes. And even though science has given us the entire physical breakdown, there's never been a successful attempt at bringing a human to life. There's still something missing, something scientists haven't been able to find in centuries of research. So what makes you think that hackjob priest with his parlor tricks is going to be able to?
So I don't believe for a second that you can't do it because it was done with Harry Potter. It's done with anime and manga. Now, true, when you're looking at a franchise like, we'll take the Marvel Cinematic Universe and all the Marvel comics, well, first off, they don't own the rights to every single comic. They don't own the rights to every single character. So they can only work with what they have. But even still, when they don't do something or they change something, the fans know it. For instance, when WandaVision was coming out, everybody and their mother on YouTube called the Hagatha thing. And people were actually happy. They didn't care that they spoiled it. They didn't care that they ruined it. They were happy with the way it was done because she was included in it, like she was in the comics. Yeah, true, it was done a little bit of a different way, but the entire WandaVision thing was done a different way, but it was a combination of different versions of the comics. Now, that's where it's acceptable. If you have a book series where you've got so many copies out there that tell the same story in different ways, take classic fairy tales, for example, Little Red Riding Hood, Snow White. There are so many different versions of that same story. So, yeah, you just have to hit the keynotes. You just have to know exactly what you're doing when you do it. And you go from there. And that's the most important thing. So let's get back into it. You know what would have been really good? You wanted, and this goes to the woke audience and stuff, but you know what would have been really good? If you had maybe made 3 or 4 of these movies and really, I mean, one of these movies could have just been them getting a call, showing a flashback of something we hadn't seen from the first movie, and dealing with them going to the town. And that movie could have ended with them all arriving back in Derry, meeting at the restaurant. And then the next and final movie could have begun with them in the restaurant, and you would have had still a ton of content to do for till the end, and it would have could have included the destruction of Derry. But what I'm bringing up here is the fact that Beverly gets into a huge fight with her. Was he a fiance or her husband? I think it was her husband. And he does, he really cuts her up good. She gives it back to him just as much and runs away and gets away and goes to her friend's house, and her friend is all pissed off and helps her get the hell out of town and back to Derry. And then he shows up at the friend's house and beats her up so he can track her down. This one, it was like she slapped him on the wrist and walked out the door. There was no real impact. It didn't really feel life-threatening. I mean, yeah, okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit of what he did and what she did, but I mean, it wasn't played up. I mean, hell, it was way more believable that she was being abused in the mini-series, which was made for TV, than it was in that movie. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? What he did in the book was way worse stuff. And they could have shown all that stuff in flashbacks. They could have shown more of each character, how they ended up. There's a ton of stuff with Bill. There's a little bit of backstory with Ben. There's not really much for Eddie. There's not really much for Stan. Beverly, Bill, and Ben seem to get the most stuff that happens to them. So, I mean, and then they added in stupid stuff like making Richie gay. That was so dumb. I absolutely hated it. That was never in the book. That did not need to be in the movies at all. It was not in the miniseries. And it was completely stupid. It's like, why are you throwing this in for no reason? They were insistent on changing the characters, and that is not the characters we read in the book. That's not the characters people grew up with. And people are not going to like when you change characters they know. Now, if there was no context, like I've gone out and I've told me and my friend, we have argued about Star Wars. He doesn't like the new ones. He says that what they did to Luke was wrong. And I'm like, why? There was never official content of what happened to Luke after Return of the Jedi. There was the expanded universe, but that was all possibilities. We never had a movie solid fact of what happened to Luke. And Luke becoming the way he was explained by the movie. It's pretty crystal clear why Luke ended up the way he did. And I believe that. Luke suffered. He suffered, and everything he is working to rebuild was destroyed. He had failed, just like all the Jedi before him. He had actually done it. He had become just like the Jedi before him. And that's when he lost everything, he realized, hey, either there's something I'm not getting, and I need to go find the answers. And that's what he did. He went searching for the answers, and basically what I believe he found was that the whole war with the Sith was going on forever, and it was never going to end as long as both sides kept fighting each other. So he said, well, since I'm the last Jedi, I'm done. I'm giving up. It's over. I'm going to be the bigger person and stop this war. Let the galaxy deal with the Sith. Because as long as there's Jedi to fight the Sith, this is never going to end. Now, do we have a book explanation for that? Not really. There's stuff that's being made now, being printed after the fact, but just from what we got in the movie, that was what I picked up. That's what I gathered from the information given to me. And it does not change the character, because Luke was a smart character. He was wise in his own way, and he made decisions, and he felt extreme sorrow when he lost everything he was building. All the students were killed. His temple was destroyed. His own family had turned to the dark side. And he had only himself to blame. Real quick, that back in my Ready Player One videos, I actually said that I really liked the movie a lot. And I'm really looking forward that if they ever make a sequel to it, that I would enjoy the sequel. But honestly, the book was way better, like I said back in that video. If you haven't checked that video out, click the link above. But that is something where they could have made like 2 movies for Ready Player One. They could have made 3 movies. And there were good spots where they could have cut it up into 3 movies, or at least 2. When they do Ready Player 2, if they make it into a movie, it's going to be really hard for them to pick up where they left off, because they kind of didn't leave any opening. I mean, the book kind of ended similarly, but they changed so much that doesn't really leave a lot of room, and it's going to be really difficult. So I doubt it's going to be anything like the book. But yeah, the movie could have had so much more instead of like a billion references in 2 hours. It could have been spread out amongst two movies, and it could have had so much more. All the D&D references, all the movie references, without over, and they could have used so much that they did use in the movie. So I just wanted to add that in here. So as I was saying, now that I've gone through all this, I ask again, can a book be turned into a movie? Yes. Follow the book. It's all right there. That book is the reason people are going to sit in your seats and watch your movie, because they want to see that book brought to life. You can add in more. You can take away the bad, like really bad stuff that you can't fit in the movie. But I mean, it better be extremely bad. And yes, a bunch of kids that are 12 years old having sex, you can't put that in a movie. There is no company, no country on this planet that will show that in a movie theater or show that on TV. So no, you cannot put that in your movie. Unless you want to get backlash like Cuties did. From what I hear, I don't know. I never watched it. To me, when I saw the trailers, that just looked like some stupid cheerleading dance thing that I grew up seeing those kinds of commercials, and those movies never interested me at all. But take the bad stuff out. Add in. Give the author the chance to say, well, here's something I would have liked, or even an author like myself, going back through my books, there's like, oh man, back when I did this, I should have put this in the book. I should have added that chapter or this little thing happening to the main character. Just add, this is their last chance to add something into the story without changing the story. And that's what the movie can do. That's the experience. You can give the reader all the same stuff that they've already read, but bring it to life. It's nice to see a drawing, but if you could bring that drawing to life, I'm sure you would. Now, before I go, I just want to say, I've had a lot of fun talking about this with you. Like I said, this can be done. It can be achieved. You can have your cake and eat it too. People will not mind if a book is done just like the movie, because they'll be like, oh, well, I may have known this going in, but now I got to see it. I actually got to see with my eyes, not just my mind. I got to see what I read. Some people will never watch the movies that are based on books. But in that same aspect, you also have moviegoers who will never pick up a book. There are hundreds of probably movies that are based on books that people who like the movies will never pick up the book because they don't have the time. They don't care to take the time. I mean, yeah, it's kind of sad for us authors, but they don't want to do it. Maybe they'll possibly listen to the audiobooks, but even then, some people won't even do that. So the movie is our only way to tell our story the way we wanted it to be told. As I've become an author, one of the things they first anybody will tell you is that get your book translated to the different media as quick as you possibly can. Make it an ebook, make it an audiobook, make it a paperback, make it a hard copy. Why? Because certain customers out there will only pick up certain brands of media. Some people will only listen to the audiobook. Some people will only read on their laptops and tablets and phones. Some people will only be willing to read it if it's on physical paper. So that is why, as an author, I think, yes, they should follow the book exactly. When I wrote each story in The Guardian of Light, every single book played like a movie in my head. There was nothing, honestly, there's nothing movies can't do nowadays. But there was nothing that couldn't be done with special effects. Yes, it might be very special effect heavy, but you know what? It would make one hell of a movie. It would make one killer franchise. In a previous video, Tailflix did a whole review on my book, which I'd be willing to read. The point is that yes, we want to see, at least as far as I know, speaking for myself, we want to see our books translated into movies. There might be a couple rare authors that never want their work translated into movies, but I'd probably be fair to say that most would, because movies are what is going to give us the largest audience. J.K. Rowling, I don't know if she did anything before Harry Potter. I think Harry Potter was her first work. But she became hugely successful because Harry Potter got turned into a movie. Yeah, the books might have been doing well before, but she got way more famous because of the movies. And like I said, the movies, they followed the books for the most part, especially that first movie. It keeps following the books for certain aspects, but they keep leaving out some of the most important details, like the turtle, which I haven't even mentioned in this video at all. But that is another thing. The turtle is majorly important, and they kept hinting at the turtle in the movies, but they never showed it. I know that True Blood was made off the Suki Stackhouse books. I never read them. I can't seem to find them. I've been looking for audiobook versions of those. If anyone has or knows where to get the audiobook versions, please let me know. Put a link in the comments section below. I would like to order those and listen to them because I'm a big fan of True Blood. I tried to listen to the audiobooks of Game of Thrones, and honestly, I really wasn't that into the audiobooks for Game of Thrones. I think I got like halfway through the first book before I just lost interest. But from what I remember, it was following the show pretty well. In fact, most of the time, that's what I hear all about with Game of Thrones, is that the first half of the series actually followed the books pretty spot on. But once they ran out of material to work from, and the author was taking forever to write them, it's like, well, we got to keep going. We can't stop and wait for him, or all our actors will be really old people by the time he's done. So granted, they had to go off their own way. And unfortunately, they, as far as the fans are concerned, they botched it up horribly because they hired the wrong guys to take care of it. They hired the wrong screenwriters to continue the story. I don't know if they were working from notes from the author, but they did not do a very good job. They failed because they strayed away from the books. Which, honestly, this was not their fault. It was the fault of the author. If the author is going to sign off a deal that is going to let somebody make a TV show or a movie out of their books, then you better work your ass off to get the rest of those books done. I have one book left in my series to write. I'm actually in the middle of writing it, and I'm not honestly that far. I think I'm on like chapter 4 out of 20 something chapters or more that I have to write. This will probably be the longest book to go. And this is already, I've got so much planned out for it in my head that it's going to take me a while. But I tell you what, if they said tomorrow, if I got a call from Teleflix or any studio saying, we want to buy your books and turn them into movies and make a franchise out of it, congratulations, here's a big old check. I am quitting my job and I am sitting in front of my computer and I am finishing book 6. So by the time they get around to it, which honestly, the way they shoot movies, I should have plenty of time to finish since I have the first 5 books in the series for them to get through. And if anything, it would be even better for me that if that happened, because of the fact that there are questions in my book series, most of which book 5 and book 4 have answered. But some of the hugest questions, some of the largest mysteries left in my book series will all be answered and dealt with in book 6. And if they wanted to turn my books into a movie, I would work as hard as I could to get this story out of my head and onto the screen or onto the paper. I'd hurry up and finish the book. It's not really that I don't have the time to finish it. It's just that I have a lot of other things to do, and now that I'm at the last book, I can slow down and take my time. I'm not going to take forever. I am working on it. But I'm also marketing the other 5 books in my series. I'm struggling to get the audiobooks done. I had a really, really good narrator set up for book 2, and he was going to work on the rest of my books. And then things happened. The deals, it fell through, so that didn't end up happening. I wasn't, as anybody who's paid attention to this channel closely, you'll know that I was not entirely happy with book 1 in my franchise. So I actually got finally in touch with the guy who did book 1, and he agreed to cancel our current work through ACX, and now that's being dissolved. Hopefully this coming week it'll be dealt with, and I'll be able to get a new narrator. I'm looking at trying to find a narrator who is going to lock in for this project. So I have the same narrator all through the audiobooks. That's what I was trying to say in a long way, but as a writer, I'm trying to get all these, different forms of media that people will consume my books. And I want to tell that story. When a movie company comes along and they say, yes, we want to turn your book into a movie, but we want to change things, well, now you're changing the author's story. Small or big, large or small, depending how you look at it, you are changing what the point of the story the author is telling. And if it worked in a book, then why would you change it for the movie? Why would you risk pissing off the people you want to get in the seats? Because when you show a trailer for a movie that's based off a book, number one, they usually say based on the best-selling novel by so-and-so. And let's use it. Based on a book by Stephen King. Oh, Stephen King wrote this? Okay, I'm going to go see that. I know Stephen King is a really good author. I want to see what movie he's got coming out. And then people sit there and they say, oh, that was nothing like the book. And now the other person who just went based off the fact it was by Stephen King, they feel ripped off because, well, they didn't get the same story. What the hell? That's like, with the Harry Potters, How many Harry Potter people out there? Those of you who have only seen the movies, never read the books. Here's a little shocking news for you. A little bit of a spoiler. Did you know that in the books, Dobby, one of the most beloved characters, actually has a much bigger role through the story? Yes, it was sad when he died in 6 in the last, movie, the last book. But it would have had so much more of a huge impact if we had him as much as we had him in the books. We didn't have that in the movies. So they kind of cheated Dobby's death because we really only, 2 scenes, I think, or 3 scenes with Dobby throughout the entire franchise before then. They really cut him out, and that's really sad because he was such a prominent character going through the books. So to all of you who have only seen the movies, you were cheated by Warner Brothers. They held out one of the best parts of the books when they made the movies. Guess what? It wasn't Neville who got Harry up for the second challenge of the Goblet of Fire and provided him the gillyweed. It was Dobby. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. At least then, if you make the movie just like the book, people who have only read the book, they can talk to people who have seen the movie. And the people who have only seen the movie can talk to the people who have read the book. Some people will do both. So a lot of people might do both. You know why? Because they're going to keep comparing them. So this has been, I don't know what this has been, a rant, but whatever. It's been something. It's been a question I answered. Can you? Yes, you can. But that's how I feel. And I feel that, this is what, if movie companies want to make more money, because otherwise, movie companies, I'm talking directly to you now. You can keep taking books and you can keep turning them into movies. But if you're not going to follow it, guess what? Your movies will always lose to the book. And the books are a lot cheaper than the movies. You can get books discounted at my book series. The paperbacks are $12.99 on Amazon. A Blu-ray at Walmart costs $19.99. Guess which one I'd probably go for if I didn't already have my own books. If you would like to check out my book series, which I'm hoping gets turned into a movie, because I have signed it up with Tailflix, and I've been assured by Tailflix that it is shown to many people often. I don't know for sure, but I don't know how Tailflix works exactly. I'm hoping it gets shown because even Tailflix said that my book series has definite franchise potential, which I was really surprised. And I might give a showcase of what their review on my book was. So that might be, if enough people want to see that, if you want me to do a video on it, just let me know in the comments below. And I'll actually go through and I'll read everything they said. But yeah, I mean, you can. You really can. Movie companies, you can just take a book, turn it straight into a movie. It's all right there. It'll speed up your production time. Just make sure you get the right people casted for the movie. Harry Potter was casted perfectly. Shining wasn't exactly a perfect casting because, I mean, that's what Stephen King didn't like about The Shining, was that Jack Nicholson was already very crazy and dark, and there was no evolution of the character going to crazy and dark. So it was kind of like Jack Nicholson just stay the same through the movie. But, I mean, yeah, I mean, you just, for the most part, follow the book. It's not hard, and you can give the audience the experience they truly want. When I watched these new movies of It, I wanted to see, even though it was going to be in the 80s, I wanted to see the books brought to life. And they were so close. They did a really good job. They got the street names right. The backgrounds, everything in the backgrounds was perfect. Even though it was the 80s, it was really good. Setting-wise, the visuals, oh my god, in the first movie were excellent. Even some of the second movie, the background stuff, the visual stuff, the house on Neibolt Street, the street signs, the missing posters, all that. Little things that were mentioned in the book, they had in the movie. But then they had to ruin it because then they changed major scenes or left out major scenes. And that's what brought it down. And it's like, no, you know what? You're not following the book. You think you are. You're dressing it nicely, but you're forgetting the most important part. So this has been whatever this is. If you would like to see more of videos like this, please subscribe to this channel. I do giveaways and more. Make sure to click the notification bell so you're notified the second a new video goes up. I want to thank you all for watching, and I will talk to you next time.